Paradox have listened and they have accepted there are some issues with coal. Yep, so they made a post about it. This is for an upcoming patch. I'm going to summarize all the changes they're going to be making in future and how they've accepted there are some issues with coal that need to be addressed and how they're going to be addressing them. First of all, let's go through the issues. So coal has become an issue for minor powers. That's already been tweaked at the moment. I'm not sure if that's going to be a temporary or long-term fix, but what happens at the moment is coal does not have a penalty if you don't have any coal on a small amount. In the day, the purpose coal has been added to the game is to have a bottleneck to the late game. You know that instance when you're in 1950, 55, and you've got like an unlimited amount of civilian factories? That shouldn't be with the game working as it should. There should be some kind of maximum amount. How do we illustrate that? Let's just show the max amount. So, for instance, this is the date. And this is the amount of IC you've got here, date IC. And as time goes on, you're not meant to have perpetual growth. They're meant to be a point where you kind of bottle out and you kind of like the growth slows. There's never going to be a moment where you will the GDP will stop completely. But this end game scenario is why they added coal. It's to prevent this continuous growth other than the old system, which went on for continuously forever. So there will be a kind of point where you teeter out. I don't think there'll ever be an instance where you're completely flatline, though. Does that make sense? So yeah, that was the goal of coal, but unfortunately, it's created some inadvertent changes. One, it has penalized minor powers, and it has created weird multiplayer scenarios. And this one of these examples. This is on the trade screen. Imagine this is trade. This is a coal trade. 19 coal, 19, yep. This is my coal. And when you trade this away, another nation buys it. What's actually happening is it's generating one civilian factory because that's what trading away does, you know. So 8 of this gets transferred to, let's say, the UK. Because it's transferred out, the UK gains one civilian factory, but that civilian factory is also consuming coal. So it's created a double effect where coal is extracted, pulled away by trade, and then also consumed more of by civilian factories. Like it's a double dip effect where coal is being used twice. And this has been noticed in the multiplayer community because the multiplayer community noticed that they bottleneck on resources late game, which is as you should, because there's going to be a certain maximum amount of production that can be had before the world has been consumed by resources, which is working as intended. Remember, we play other RTS games and we understand that there's like more resources you can collect. There's like an infinite enough for resources, but they have mentioned very clear that there is a finite resource. This is not an unlimited resource. So this idea you can just generate more and more and more and more of it continuously forever and ever and ever is not a possibility. If you look at it in a real world scenario, it's an efficiency thing, isn't it? There's always going to be a point where you can't take it out the ground for it efficiently enough for it actually to be affordable enough for people to afford it. I guess the random example I can think of is oil sands in Canada. I believe oil in Canada is one of the biggest untapped resources on the entire planet. But the cost it takes to process oil sands and take the sand out of the oil and just the raw petroleum from it is an unbelievably huge cost, which is just more effective to get it from, I don't know, the Middle East, for instance. But then eventually, if the efficiency of converting oil sands into oil becomes more efficient due to technology and the efficiency goes through, eventually that oil will be something we'll tap into at some point in the future. Probably never do. Real world example anyway. But anyway, example of that is that there should be a finite resource and there should be a maximum amount that you should be able to take out before there is an actual limit. There is a limited amount of coal in the game by design, and running out of coal is acceptable, and it is a part of the intended gameplay loop. I'll repeat that again. Running out of coal is acceptable, and it is by game design, okay? So this idea you can produce more of it infinitely is a little bit silly. There are some mods out there that do add additional coal, and it kind of goes against the whole purpose of the game. I kind of like the coal works differently, and it works almost like the fuel of factories, which I think is working as intended, but be aware, yeah, unlimited fuel is just not realistic. It's kind of one of the reasons, actually, now I think about it, why I don't like the way synthetics work, because they make an infinite amount of oil and rubber, and I feel like there should be a maximum cap of how much oil and rubber you should be able to produce from them. I've always said that synthetics should be consuming fuel as well, but surprisingly they don't. That's a good one, Paradox. Why don't synthetics, which are meant to be the way we generate oil and rubber, why are they free? Has anyone wondered that? It is a bit strange, isn't it? Like the factories require coal, but this... Anyway, continue. Right now, if energy used per factory scales endlessly and becomes extreme, They will add a cap after a certain number of factories. Energy per factory stops increasing and stays constant, and the cap will be moddable. Okay, let's actually get into the nitty gritty. What are the changes they're actually making? That's basically referring to the live version. All right, so they're going to be changing civilian nuclear reactors. Currently, what they do is they reduce local energy consumption by 25%. They will be increased to 50%. That's massive. The downside to this is this requires a lot of micro, because remember, this is local energy production. Well, reduction production. So it's not making your energy production go down universally for your entire nation. All it's doing is reducing the amount of energy consumed per state. And you have to be more skillful where you place it. Place it in the regions that have the highest amount, like the metropolitan regions, megatropolis and metatropolis regions, which consume the most amount of building slots and have the most amount of energy consumption based on the amount of factories. We're happy with the remaining state modifier to local rather than the flat amount. Since the energy to create tangible need for expansion to support a militarized economy. This will create a wrong gameplay dynamic by encouraging players to transition their economy away from coal in the end game. Which is actually kind of interesting, because that is actually kind of the world we're living in right now, isn't it? Yeah, but it's going to happen 30, 40, 50, 60 years ahead of time. Industry technological adjustments. So this is the standard one. I believe this is the same. Equipment conversion plus 20% and production efficiency cap plus 10%. That's the same yet. But they're adding some new technology. I guess these feed onto this. That's why it's showing this. First of all, we're rolling out the equipment conversion modifiers from the improved and advanced conversion technology into the first four. Oh, they're getting rid of them. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. This is involved with coal. So the conversion bonuses, which were independent to technology, they're about here and here in game, have been rolled into the machine goods now. Replaces those technologies with the coal. Oh, so they're choosing to use those slots for this one. They're basically going for the kind of cheaper approach by replacing existing technologies. Interesting. The new effect is called energy gain per coal, similar to fuel gain per oil, which will increase how much energy is gained from each fuel, making whether this traded or excavated coal more efficient in running. So to be fair with you, you would never research this unless you're reaching the cap. These are basically end game technologies. Surprisingly, though, are they going to shove them further down the focus tree? Because it seems really bizarre to me. I have access to these in 1930s. Surely it's be 40s, hitting 50s. It needs to be more of an end game technology that you have to work towards to get. It would make more sense if it's late game, right? Also, some of the industrial concerns have been changed. It looks like at the moment, industrial company will add a flat amount of coal. This is very good for minor powers, because once again, minor powers sometimes do not have access to any coal, and adding just a little bit will go a long, long way. This was actually one of my suggestions that I put on a DLC discussion Discord. Once again, I think it's a bit of a cheap cop out, because I don't really like a lot of these concerns that just marginally make resources appear out of thin air, but I think it's a really good solution. You know what I mean? It just fixes that innate problem, especially when these resources don't exist. They're kind of in imaginary. They're off map. You know, they've been pulled from I don't know, from an imaginary location. Use your imagination. Imagine Stellaris or something. Also, another thing is electronics concern now also reduces energy consumption by 10% per factory. So basically, this is how it's going to work. The early technology is going to be industrial company to get the initial base amount of coal. And then when you transition to a late game economy, you're going for electronics. I really like that. My only suggestion is it'd be kind of cool if there were some extra ones they added. And they would just give you the standard ones. Yeah? It's a little bit sad in a way they're recycling the existing ones. But I suppose this is an easier fix, I suppose. Other than introducing, like, I don't know, a lot of new game mechanics, I suppose. We've seen reports that trading essentially causes double dipping, as both countries picking up with paying up for the civ, as well as the one receives the factory from trading has to pay an energy tax, thus creating a system where energy consumption goes up. We're leaning towards having factories receive from the trade being exempt, but I'm keen to hear the opinions on this community. So they've not decided what they're going to do with this choice. To be honest with you, I think this is an effect that isn't that bad. But the only downside to this is it will encourage people to move off free trade and onto closed economy, because that way you avoid the trade tax, you know. There's also a robust discussion about whether other sources of energy, or oil, for instance, are currently being stand. Oil fulfills an existing game mechanic, and we're intending to keep that separation for now. And that's it, folks. Do the devs reply, though? That's the question. What about dams? They will provide a coal energy reduction as they do currently. Right now it is 65%. We may tweak that number going forward. Okay, so there's definitely a more work in progress going out. Final reply. How will the improved nuclear reactors interact with dams? Can you reach a maximum 100% to use in some states? And you can. So if you were to pair a dam with a nuclear reactor, you basically get unlimited perpetual fuel. Perpetual motion is possible in Hearts of Iron 4. What do you know? You know, I don't like 100% reductions. I feel like they're a bit icky. I feel like everything should be like 95% or 90%. But there you go. Unlimited fuel is possible, guys. Maybe the future is fusion. Fusion with dams. Fusion dam reactors. Nuclear powered, civilian. All of them. Suggestion for you guys. How do you think we should fix the double dipping? Think we leave it as it is? Is it just a byproduct that causes endgame bottleneck for coal, which is inevitable anyway? What about other sources of fuel? Do you think we should allow oil to be used as a backup fuel amount? Maybe it's like incredibly inefficient, maybe. I'm not saying this is historical or true or anything, but I'm just saying that maybe if you did use oil, it would use, I don't know, maybe 3 oil per 1 coal, for instance, to make it kind of feel like it's a backup source, but not really a reliable one, for instance. And then finally, the one thing that hasn't been mentioned in the synthetics. Does anyone think like synthetics? Just to give you a background on synthetics, the reason they were using the war is because Germany couldn't get access to rubber and oil, and that was one of their completely energy inefficient methods of turning coal into rubber and into fuel. I double down on the word inefficient there because it required an insane amount of energy to get, like, for instance, for every 10 parts coal gets 1 part rubber, for instance. That's an exaggeration. I don't know the actual conversion, but just illustrate from an energy perspective, it was incredibly energy inefficient. As time went on, though, obviously it got more efficient as the war went on. And as of today, I believe making rubber out of oil is significantly more efficient, and it is used in some niche cases. But for the most part, it is, I don't know, more efficient to pull it out of the ground. I suppose it depends on the instance. It all depends on how efficient that is overall. And that was just a byproduct, an example that I thought. And I just think it's a bit strange that in Hearts of Iron 4, synthetics don't consume anything. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do consume some coal. I haven't actually double checked that in the game. You know, I'll be honest with you guys. I play Hearts of Iron 4 so quickly, I don't even pay that much attention to those late game resources because I feel like I cap the UK with record time every single time. Maybe that's just me. Apart from that, guys, hope you have a good day. See you soon. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.